The experimental jump drive of the Pathfinder hummed with energy as Captain James Mitchell watched the countdown timer reach 0. This was humanity's first attempt at faster-than-light travel, and every person aboard the small exploration vessel felt the weight of history on their shoulders. "Jump in 3, 2, 1, announced Navigation Officer Emma Wright from her station. The universe twisted around them. Stars stretched into impossible lines of light, and for a moment that felt like eternity, they existed between spaces. Then reality snapped back into focus, and Captain Mitchell found himself staring at something that should have been impossible. They were supposed to be orbiting Alpha Centauri, humanity's nearest stellar neighbor just 4 light-years from Earth. Instead, the view screen showed a massive battle raging in space around them. Dozens of alien ships, unlike anything in human imagination, were locked in deadly combat. Explosions bloomed like deadly flowers across the void, and the debris of destroyed vessels drifted past their hull. "Where are we?" whispered Dr. Robert Hayes, the ship's medical officer, as he stared in amazement at the alien warships. Emma's fingers flew across her navigation console, her face growing pale as she processed the readings. "Captain, according to our instruments, we're 50,000 light-years from Earth. That's impossible, but the stellar positioning confirms it." A massive explosion lit up the darkness as one of the larger vessels broke apart, spilling hundreds of escape pods and debris into space. The pods contained life signs, but they were failing fast in the vacuum. Chief Engineer Lucy Barnes looked up from her damage control station. "Captain, our jump drive overloaded during the transition. We're stuck here until I can figure out what went wrong." Captain Mitchell watched the battle continue around them, seeing the desperation in the movements of the smaller ships as they tried to escape the larger, more powerful vessels. The bigger ships had a predatory quality to their design, all sharp angles and weapon ports, while the smaller craft looked more like civilian vessels pressed into military service. "Sir, we're receiving multiple distress signals," reported Communications Officer David Turner. "Both from the big ships and the small ones. I can't understand the language, but the universal distress frequencies are clear enough." Another wave of explosions rippled through the battle zone. More escape pods launched from dying ships, their occupants' life signs growing weaker by the minute. Captain Mitchell felt his training as a former rescue pilot kick in, overriding any concerns about alien politics or the mysterious circumstances of their arrival. "All hands, prepare for emergency rescue operations," he announced over the ship's intercom. "I don't care whose war this is or how we got here. There are people dying out there, and we're going to help them." Security Chief Rachel Green looked uncertain. "Captain, we don't know anything about these species or their conflict. We could be making enemies of everyone. Or we could be saving lives," Mitchell replied firmly. "That's what humans do. We help people in trouble." The Pathfinder moved through the battle zone with careful precision, using its small size and unfamiliar design to avoid drawing fire from either side. Dr. Hayes and his medical team prepared the cargo bay as an emergency treatment center, while Engineer Barnes worked to extend their life support systems to accommodate unknown alien physiologies. The first rescue was a small pod containing 3 beings that looked vaguely reptilian, with scaled skin and large, intelligent eyes. They were badly injured and unconscious when the human rescue team brought them aboard. Dr. Hayes immediately began treatment, using basic medical principles that seemed to work regardless of species. The second rescue came from a completely different type of escape pod, containing 2 beings that appeared more insect-like, with compound eyes and chitinous armor. They were from one of the larger, predatory-looking ships, but Dr. Hayes treated their injuries with the same care he had shown the first group. "Doctor, should we be mixing potential enemies in the same medical bay?" asked medical technician Peter Clark nervously. "They're all patients now," Hayes replied without looking up from his work. "We treat everyone the same." Word of the strange new ship spread quickly through both fleets. The massive Imperial flagship, a vessel called the Dominion that dwarfed the human ship, began moving toward them with obvious intent. "Captain, that big ship is hailing us," Turner reported. "I think they want to talk." On the main screen appeared the image of an imposing alien figure. Admiral Korath of the Zerati Empire had never encountered anything like these mysterious newcomers. In his 200 years of service, every species the Empire discovered either fled in terror or immediately surrendered when faced with Imperial might. These strange bipeds, however, were calmly pulling survivors from both sides of the battle without showing any fear whatsoever. "Unknown vessel," Korath's voice boomed through the translator. "You will cease your interference in Imperial affairs and prepare to be boarded." Captain Mitchell looked at the alien admiral with the same calm expression he might use when discussing the weather. "We're conducting rescue operations for your wounded and the wounded of your enemies. Once we've saved everyone we can, we'll be happy to talk. The bridge of the Dominion fell silent. No one had ever spoken to an Imperial Admiral with such casual disregard for protocol. Korath found himself genuinely curious about these beings who treated Imperial authority as if it were merely a suggestion. As the Pathfinder continued its rescue work, treating alien soldiers and rebels with equal care, the Zerati Admiral realized he was witnessing something unprecedented in galactic history. These humans had accidentally stumbled into the middle of an Imperial conflict, and instead of choosing sides or fleeing in terror, they had simply started helping everyone who needed it. The massive tractor beam of the Imperial flagship Dominion pulled the human vessel Pathfinder into its cavernous docking bay. Captain James Mitchell watched through the viewscreen as hundreds of Zerati soldiers surrounded their ship, their exotic weapons trained on the hull. Any other species would have been trembling in fear by now. Instead, Dr. Robert Hayes was in the cargo bay, still treating wounded aliens from both sides of the recent battle. He had set up a makeshift hospital using emergency supplies and was working steadily to save lives, completely ignoring the political implications of his patients. "Captain, they want us to come aboard their ship for questioning," reported Communications Officer David Turner. "The translation software is working, but their tone suggests this isn't really a request." Captain Mitchell straightened his uniform and walked toward the airlock. "Then let's go meet our hosts. But first, I want to make something clear to everyone." He activated the ship's internal communication system. "All crew members will continue normal operations. Dr. Hayes, keep treating patients. Lucy, keep working on those repairs. We're guests here, but we're not prisoners." The airlock opened to reveal a delegation of Zerati officers led by Admiral Korath himself. The Admiral was an impressive figure, standing nearly 8 feet tall with blue-scaled skin and eyes that seemed to see everything. His ornate uniform displayed the symbols of absolute authority over 1,000 worlds. "I am Admiral Korath of the Zerati Empire," he announced in a voice that had made entire planets surrender without firing a shot. "You will explain your presence in Imperial space immediately." Captain Mitchell looked up at the towering alien without any sign of intimidation. "Captain James Mitchell of the Earth vessel Pathfinder. Nice to meet you, Admiral. We're here by accident, but right now we need medical supplies for the wounded we've rescued from your battle." The Zerati officers exchanged glances. In their experience, newly discovered species either begged for mercy or tried to offer tribute when faced with Imperial power. They had never encountered anyone who made demands for medical supplies as if they were discussing a routine supply request. "You dare make demands of the Empire?" asked Commander Vex, Korath's second-in-command, his voice rising with indignation. "Not demands," Mitchell replied calmly. "Requests. We have injured people who need help. Some of them are your people, by the way. My medical officer is treating them right now, and is doing good work, but we need more supplies to keep everyone alive." Admiral Korath decided to see this human medical facility for himself. The group walked through the Pathfinder's corridors, and the Admiral was surprised by what he observed. The ship was small and cramped compared to Imperial vessels, but it was clean and efficiently designed. More importantly, the human crew members they passed showed no fear of the Zerati delegation. Engineer Lucy Barnes was in the middle of repairing a damaged power coupling when they walked past her workstation. She looked up at the group of imposing aliens and nodded politely. "Afternoon, gentlemen. Hope you don't mind, but I'm fixing some of your ship systems while I work on ours. Your power distribution is pretty inefficient. You are working on Imperial systems without permission?" Commander Vex demanded. Lucy shrugged and returned to her work. "Your people asked for help with a power fluctuation. I'm an engineer. Fixing things is what I do." She held up a component. "This regulator design is about 50 years behind what it could be. Want me to show you how to improve it?" The Zerati engineers in the group leaned forward with interest despite themselves. No one had ever offered to share advanced technology with the Empire without expecting something in return. They reached the cargo bay, which had been converted into an emergency medical center. Dr. Hayes was performing surgery on a Zerati officer while his assistant, medical technician Peter Clark, worked on one of the rebel fighters they had rescued. Both patients were receiving the same level of care. "Doctor, these are our hosts," Captain Mitchell announced. Dr. Hayes looked up from his patient briefly. "Good timing. I could use some help. Do any of you know Zerati biology? This officer has internal bleeding, and I'm working from basic principles here." Admiral Korath stared at the scene before him. A human was performing surgery on a high-ranking Imperial officer, treating him with the same care as a rebel fighter. In the Empire, rank determined everything, including medical priority. Yet these humans seem to ignore all social hierarchy. Why are you helping our enemies? Commander Vex asked, pointing at the rebel fighter. Same reason we're helping your officer, Dr. Hayes replied without stopping his work. They're injured and we're doctors. That's how it works. A Zerati medical officer who had been watching the human procedures stepped forward. Admiral, their techniques are remarkably effective. This human has stabilized injuries that our field medics said were untreatable. Security Chief Rachel Green appeared at the entrance to the medical bay. Captain, we've got more rescue pods incoming. Looks like the battle is spreading to nearby systems. Prep more space in here, Mitchell ordered. We'll treat whoever needs help. Admiral Korath found himself in an unprecedented situation. These humans were not following any diplomatic protocol he knew. They made no attempt to curry favor with Imperial power. They asked for nothing except supplies to help the wounded. Most confusing of all, they treated Imperial officers and rebel fighters as if they were equals. Human Captain, Korath said slowly, do you understand that you are addressing representatives of an empire that controls 1,000 worlds? Captain Mitchell nodded. That's impressive. Must be a lot of responsibility. But right now, we've got people to save. Will you help us get those medical supplies, or do we need to find them ourselves? For the first time in his long career, Admiral Korath found himself wondering if perhaps the humans had the right idea about priorities. The Imperial Council chamber was designed to make lesser species feel small and powerless. Massive crystalline walls rose hundreds of feet above the floor, covered with the symbols of 1,000 conquered worlds. Holographic displays showed the vast extent of Zerati territory, spanning entire spiral arms of the galaxy. At the center of it all sat the High Council, 7 of the most powerful beings in known space. Admiral Korath escorted Captain James Mitchell and his senior officers into this temple of imperial might. Every species that had ever stood in this chamber had either begged for mercy or offered immediate surrender. The Admiral was curious to see how these stubborn humans would react. High Counselor Vextar, the most senior member of the Council, looked down at the small group of humans with ancient eyes that had witnessed the fall of entire civilizations. His voice echoed through the vast chamber like thunder. So, these are the primitives who dare to interfere in imperial affairs, he said, his words carrying the weight of absolute authority. Do you understand where you stand, humans? This is the heart of an empire that has ruled the galaxy for 10,000 years. Captain Mitchell looked around the impressive chamber with genuine interest, as if he were taking a guided tour rather than facing judgment from galactic overlords. Very nice architecture, he said conversationally. The acoustics are excellent. You must get great sound for ceremonies. The council members exchanged glances. This was not the response they expected. Human, Vextar continued, his voice growing colder, you will explain why you interfered in our battle operations and why you treated our enemies with the same care as Imperial citizens. Mitchell pulled out a small data pad and activated a simple holographic display. We're explorers from a planet called Earth. We got lost and ended up in the middle of your fight. When we saw people dying, we helped them. That's what humans do. The presentation was remarkably straightforward. No complex diplomatic language, no attempts to flatter imperial egos, just basic facts delivered as if he were explaining something to a neighbor. We have medical technology that works on different species, Mitchell continued. We have engineering knowledge that can improve your systems. We're happy to share both with anyone who wants to learn. Counselor Zethmore leaned forward. And what do you want in return, human? Territory? Resources? Tribute from our subjects? Nothing, Mitchell replied simply. We just want everyone to get along and stop shooting at each other. The silence that followed was profound. In 10,000 years of imperial expansion, no species had ever asked for nothing in return for their cooperation. High Counselor Vextar's voice turned threatening. Perhaps you do not understand your situation. We could destroy your primitive vessel with a single weapon burst. We could imprison you in our deepest dungeons. We could scatter your atoms across space itself. Captain Mitchell nodded thoughtfully. You probably could do all those things. But while we're standing here making threats, there are wounded people who need medical attention. Dr. Hayes has set up treatment centers on 3 different ships now, and Engineer Barnes is helping repair battle damage across your fleet. Are we going to keep talking, or can we get back to helping people? The human captain's calm response to imperial threats was unprecedented. Counselor Meltar activated a communication device. Admiral Korath, what is the current status of these human operations? High Counselor, Korath's voice came through the speakers, Their medical officer has saved the lives of 230 Imperial personnel and has trained our medics in advanced trauma techniques. Their engineer has improved power efficiency on 15 ships and taught our technicians new repair methods. Their security chief has established peaceful refugee camps for displaced civilians from both sides of the conflict. Dr. Robert Hayes had indeed been busy. After setting up the initial medical bay, he had begun teaching Zerati medics and rebel fighters alike how to treat injuries that had previously been considered fatal. His techniques were simple but effective, and he shared them freely with anyone interested in learning. Engineer Lucy Barnes had become something of a legend among the Imperial technical staff. She approached every mechanical problem with cheerful enthusiasm, treating complex Imperial technology as if it were an interesting puzzle. More importantly, she explained her improvements to anyone who asked, turning repair sessions into impromptu engineering classes. Security Chief Rachel Green had taken a different approach entirely. Instead of establishing security protocols, she had focused on conflict resolution. She had helped set up neutral zones where wounded fighters from both sides could receive treatment, and had somehow convinced bitter enemies to work together on refugee relief efforts. High Counselor, Admiral Korath continued, we have reports coming in from across the sector. Word is spreading about the humans' activities. Several subjugated species are requesting similar medical and technical assistance. This news caused murmurs of concern among the council members. The Empire maintained control through a careful balance of fear and dependency. If their subjects began to believe they could receive help without Imperial approval, it could undermine the entire system. High Counselor Vextar stood, his imposing figure casting shadows across the chamber floor. Human Captain, you will cease these activities immediately. You will return to your vessel and await Imperial judgment. Any further interference in our affairs will be considered an act of war. Captain Mitchell looked up at the towering alien leader with the same calm expression he had maintained throughout the meeting. With respect, Counselor, we're not interfering in anything. We're just helping people who need help. If that threatens your empire, maybe the problem isn't with us. He turned to his officers. Come on, team. We've got work to do. Dr. Hayes, I believe you mentioned something about establishing a proper hospital facility? As the humans walked out of the council chamber, continuing their conversation about medical logistics and supply distribution, the most powerful leaders in the galaxy were left staring after them in bewilderment. For the first time in Imperial history, someone had ignored their authority completely and walked away to continue doing exactly what they had been told to stop doing. High Counselor Vextar slammed his clawed hand against the control panel in the Imperial War Room. 3 months had passed since the humans had walked out of the council chamber, and their influence was spreading like wildfire across Imperial space. Reports flooded in daily of species requesting human-style medical aid and technical assistance. Send the 3rd Battle Fleet, he commanded Admiral Korath. These humans have had enough time to learn respect for Imperial authority. Destroy their ship and end this nonsense before it spreads further. Admiral Korath felt uncomfortable with the order but transmitted it to Fleet Commander Zekthal. The 3rd Battle Fleet consisted of 12 heavy cruisers and support vessels, more than enough firepower to eliminate one small exploration ship. It should have been a simple mission. Fleet Commander Zekthal found the Pathfinder operating near a damaged mining station in the Outer Rim territories. The human ship was impossibly small compared to his massive warships, yet it was coordinating relief efforts for thousands of displaced miners whose facility had suffered a catastrophic accident. Human vessel, Zekthal broadcast on all frequencies, you are ordered to surrender immediately. Continued resistance will result in your destruction. Captain Mitchell's voice came back over the communication system with frustrating calm. Fleet Commander, we're in the middle of a rescue operation here. We've got about 2,000 miners trapped in collapsed tunnels, and our teams are working around the clock to get them out. Can this wait a few hours? Zekthal stared at his communications officer in disbelief. The human captain was treating an Imperial death sentence like an appointment that needed to be rescheduled. You will comply immediately, or we will open fire, the fleet commander declared. Look, Commander, Mitchell replied, you're welcome to help with the rescue if you want. Dr. Hayes could use some extra medical personnel, and Engineer Barnes says she needs more heavy lifting equipment to clear the tunnel debris. Otherwise, we're kind of busy right now. Before Zekthal could respond, alarms began blaring throughout his flagship. The ship's main reactor was experiencing massive fluctuations, and emergency systems were failing across multiple decks. Within minutes, 3 of his cruisers were reporting similar problems. Sir, we're detecting cascade failures in our primary power systems, his chief engineer reported with panic in his voice. If we don't shut down main power immediately, we could lose life support across the fleet. The irony was not lost on anyone when the human ship Pathfinder responded to their distress signals. Engineer Lucy Barnes transported over to the Imperial flagship with a team of technicians, completely ignoring the fact that these were the same people who had just threatened to destroy her ship. "Your power coupling design has a fatal flaw," she explained to the Zerati engineers as she worked to stabilize their reactor. "The resonance frequency builds up over time until it causes exactly this kind of cascade failure. It's fixable, but you'll need to retrofit your entire fleet." Fleet Commander Zekthal watched in amazement as the human engineer saved his ships from destruction, then offered to teach his crew how to prevent the problem from happening again. When he tried to offer her his sword in ritual surrender, as Zerati custom demanded after being saved by an enemy, she just looked confused. "Why would I want your sword?" Barnes asked. "I'm an engineer, not a warrior. Just promise me you'll upgrade these power systems before someone gets hurt." Similar scenes played out across Imperial space as fleet after fleet was sent to eliminate the troublesome humans. The second fleet encountered the Pathfinder during a rescue operation at a space station hit by an asteroid. The humans immediately included the Imperial ships in their disaster relief efforts, treating wounded Imperial personnel alongside civilian casualties. The fourth fleet found the humans mediating a dispute between two colony worlds over mining rights. Captain Mitchell had somehow convinced both sides to share the resources and work together, then offered to teach them more efficient mining techniques that would benefit everyone. The most embarrassing incident occurred when the elite First Fleet, the Empire's most prestigious military unit, encountered a severe navigation error that left them stranded in an unmapped nebula. The Pathfinder found them 3 days later, guided them out of the nebula, and then Dr. Hayes treated several crew members who had suffered radiation exposure from their damaged shields. Admiral Korath received increasingly frustrated reports from his fleet commanders. None of them could bring themselves to attack a ship that kept rescuing them from various disasters. More troubling, many of his officers were beginning to question the orders to destroy the humans in the first place. Commander Thane of the Sixth Fleet submitted the most disturbing report of all. The humans had established what they called a neutral zone around a damaged freighter carrying refugees from 3 different species. Imperial protocol demanded that the refugees be processed through proper channels and assigned to appropriate labor camps. Instead, the humans had set up temporary housing, medical facilities, and job training programs. "Admiral," Commander Thane reported, "they're treating Imperial citizens, rebel fighters, and neutral civilians exactly the same. They've established schools for the children, technical training for the adults, and medical care for everyone. The refugees don't want to leave." Even more concerning, several Imperial officers had requested permission to study human techniques. The humans welcomed them openly, shared their knowledge freely, and treated Imperial personnel as colleagues rather than conquerors or enemies. Word of these encounters spread throughout the galaxy at the speed of hyperspace communication. Species that had never dared to oppose Imperial authority began asking questions. If these humans could ignore Imperial threats and continue helping people, why couldn't others do the same? On distant worlds, subject species began establishing their own medical centers and technical schools based on human principles. They started treating each other as equals regardless of species or social status. Most dangerous of all, they began to believe that they didn't need Imperial permission to help their neighbors. High Counselor Vextar realized with growing horror that every attempt to destroy the humans had only made their influence stronger. 1 year after their accidental arrival in Zerati space, Captain James Mitchell stood in the observation deck of the Pathfinder and watched something that should have been impossible. Where once the iron grip of Imperial control had held 1,000 worlds in fear, now ships from dozens of different species worked together in peaceful cooperation. The transformation had happened gradually, then all at once. Dr. Robert Hayes had established his first interspecies hospital on the neutral station of Haven Prime, a former Imperial military outpost that had been abandoned after a reactor accident. Within weeks, medical personnel from across the galaxy had arrived to learn human techniques and share their own knowledge. "Captain, we're receiving another delegation request," reported Communications Officer David Turner. "This time it's from the Calarian Republic. They want to establish a joint research facility using our cooperation model." Mitchell nodded absently. The requests had been coming in daily for months now. Species that had been bitter enemies for centuries were suddenly working together, inspired by the simple human principle that everyone deserved help regardless of their background or politics. Engineer Lucy Barnes had become something of a legend throughout the sector. Her technical schools had spread to 40 different worlds, teaching advanced engineering to anyone interested in learning. More importantly, She had created mixed species teams that shared knowledge freely across old racial and political boundaries. "Luce's latest report is pretty amazing," said Security Chief Rachel Green, reading from her datapad. "The Vorthan and Zalaki engineers just completed a joint project to improve asteroid mining safety. 6 months ago, those species were trying to exterminate each other. The real breakthrough had come when Dr. Hayes treated a dying Zarati child whose condition was beyond imperial medicine. The child's father was Admiral Korath himself, and watching a human doctor save his daughter's life had changed everything for the veteran imperial officer. Korath had quietly begun implementing human-style policies throughout his sector. Instead of demanding tribute from conquered worlds, he offered medical aid and technical assistance. Instead of ruling through fear, he encouraged cooperation and mutual support. The results had been remarkable. "Sir, Admiral Korath is requesting permission to come aboard," Turner announced. "Send him up," Mitchell replied. "I always enjoy his visits." Admiral Korath entered the observation deck looking tired but oddly peaceful. The proud Imperial officer who had first captured the Pathfinder had transformed into something very different over the past year. "Captain Mitchell," Korath said, settling his massive frame into a reinforced chair, "I have news from the Imperial Corps. High Counselor Vextar has requested a formal meeting with you." Mitchell raised an eyebrow. "That's a change. Last time we met, he threatened to scatter our atoms across space." "Much has changed," Korath replied with what might have been a smile on his alien features. 17 sectors have declared independence from Imperial control in the past month alone. They are all establishing governments based on your cooperation principles. The High Council is beginning to realize that they have a choice: adapt or become irrelevant. The irony was not lost on Captain Mitchell. The humans had never fired a shot in anger, never conquered a single world, never even tried to overthrow the Empire. They had simply continued being themselves, helping anyone who needed assistance and treating everyone with basic respect and kindness. "The hospital ship Mercy arrived yesterday," reported Dr. Hayes as he joined the group. "It's a converted Imperial dreadnought, completely redesigned for medical operations. They are staffed with doctors from 12 different species, all working together." Hayes had aged visibly over the past year, but he looked satisfied in a way that years of earthbound medical practice had never provided. His interspecies medical protocols had saved millions of lives and created a new standard of healthcare across the galaxy. "Doctor, how many hospitals are operating under your system now?" Korath asked. 237 at last count," Hayes replied. "And we're training new medical personnel every day. The beautiful thing is, each species brings something unique to the table. The Zarati have incredible surgical precision, the Vorthans understand biochemistry better than anyone, and the humans provide the organizational framework that makes it all work together." Security Chief Rachel Green approached with a priority message. "Captain, we're receiving a transmission from Earth. The diplomatic vessel Ambassador has arrived in the system." Mitchell felt a mix of excitement and apprehension. Earth had finally sent an official diplomatic mission to establish formal relations with whatever they might find. The problem was, there was no longer a single government to negotiate with. The Zarati Empire was fragmenting into dozens of independent cooperative federations. "Admiral, what do you think the High Council will do when they meet with Earth's diplomats?" Mitchell asked. Korath was quiet for a moment. "I think they will discover what I learned when my daughter was dying in our medical bay. Sometimes the most powerful thing you can do is admit that your old ways aren't working and ask for help." Through the observation deck windows, they could see the massive Earthship Ambassador approaching. It was designed to impress, built to project the power and authority of humanity's first interstellar diplomatic mission. Captain Mitchell couldn't help but laugh at the situation. Earth was sending diplomats to negotiate with a galactic empire, not knowing that the empire had already been accidentally replaced by a loose confederation of species who had learned to cooperate simply by watching humans be themselves. "Well, team," Mitchell said to his crew, "looks like our little exploration mission is finally coming to an end. Time to go home and explain how we accidentally changed the galaxy by refusing to stop helping people." As the Pathfinder prepared for its journey back to Earth, Captain Mitchell took one last look at the transformed galaxy around them. Ships from dozens of species moved in peaceful formation, working together on projects that would have been impossible under Imperial rule. They had proven that humanity's greatest weapon wasn't superior technology or military might, but something far more dangerous to tyrannical systems: the simple belief that everyone deserved to be treated with dignity and respect, regardless of who they were or where they came from.